This is Islomania Part 1, a conversation between me, Tom Scharpling, and Nick Thorburn from Islands, discussing the stories behind the band and their albums. The new Islands album is called Islomania and will be released on June 11th on Royal Mountain Records.
Islamania, Islamania, Islamania.
So I guess we should say welcome to Islomania, the career, the Islands retrospective. We're going through the catalog. There's 8 albums. The 8th album comes out in June.
Yeah, June 11th.
Okay. And that album's called Islomania.
It is.
And that's kind of, it's exciting because we'll get there at a point, but it didn't seem like there would be an 8th album for a long time.
Yeah, I know. I really, I think in 2016, I was all spent. I really wanted to not have anything to do with music. People would always ask me in like 2017, I remember people asking me like, oh, have you been on tour? Are you on tour right now? You going on tour? And it felt offensive to me. It felt like insulting. Like that's all I was just this promo machine.
Sure. Well, that's the thing. When you put music out, there's this routine that people do, but then it seems like the routine controls you rather than you controlling the routine. Kind of like you record, tour America, tour Europe, wherever, do interviews, TV show, whatever you do to promote a record, and then you just do that again.
Yeah, I don't know how you feel about Fugazi, but that was a very pivotal early band for me, with especially with the Unicorns. But seeing how they would treat touring, it was definitely not in conjunction with promotion. It was like, we have a batch of songs we're going to record, so we go out and tour them, and then we go into the studio and record the record, and we are a very tight band as a result of that.
Sure. So by the time they hit the studio, these songs are good to go.
Laser tight. Yeah. And I saw them in 2000 before The Argument came out. Their last record came out like a month after 9/11 or something. And yeah, so when I saw them, they were doing a lot of those songs, but it wasn't. I think Animal Collective does that too. And to be honest, so did I. Like I was, when we were touring in 2006 for the new record that hadn't even come out yet, we were doing songs that would end up on the 3rd record off of Vapours. Like I was always just trying to like not just be, like it's not a closed circle. Like, yeah, here's the record and we're playing the record. And yeah, that always, I know that's what you're supposed to do, but it always just it was drudgery. Like if that was what tour was just purely, in conjunction with like advertising, it would kill me. I by the time a record comes out, I'm always 2 steps removed from it. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's a lot of people when you think of like, Neil Young or Bob Pollard or people like that, where it's just like by the time the record comes out, they're not interested in that record. They were interested in when they made that record, and they were playing that stuff a year earlier to get ready to make that record. Exactly. And it's such an interesting thing to think about, people making stuff where the audience is not up to speed as the performer is, in terms of like, I'm trying to think who it is that's going to kill me. I just watched a documentary and somebody said that they like to, can't remember who it was, they like to get in the studio, record some of the record, then start playing it live, figure out what's not working with the stuff, then finish it up after like
putting the stuff in front of an audience.
Oh,
like
wow.
mid-process.
So go into the studio, then go on the road.
Yeah, or just even do shows, do local shows, kind of stress test
Road
this.
test. Yeah.
And see where that ends up. And that's kind of interesting. But it is well, look, this new record is great, and we'll talk more about that in due time. But it's also something that you definitely
episode
weren't
8, yeah.
you were not able to, like, due to the pandemic. Everything. When did you record the new record?
It was a process of a couple years. So I started in 2019. In February of 2019, started to get back into it, and did some initial recording. One or two songs, went in with a couple songs, one at a time. I kind of wanted to do the piecemeal thing instead of what I'd always done, which was just go in and do a record in 3 weeks. Yeah. And that's kind of like, I feel like Neil Young would do that, right? He'd be on tour and like they'd have a day off and he'd go into the studio and just bang out a song. And then like Ohio, I think came out like a couple weeks after they cut it.
They're just they knock it out, and then they're just in the moment.
Yeah.
It's like, let's turn this around.
Yeah. That's what I'd love to happen, especially in this age where you can just kind of release songs a la mode or whatever.
Sure, because the concept of an album seems like it's something that's a la mode. That would be great.
That would be
you
great.
Put a scoop of ice cream on your song.
It's very sweet.
But it's like the concept of an album is this tenuous thing now for the first time in a long time. So almost since you think about like the rock and roll starts with the single. And
Rocket 88, right?
Yeah. And that's where it starts with, but it's just the song. It's here's the song. And then at some point it shifts to where it's like, what's the album? And the albums became the statements, not the songs.
But that was just to package. I mean, it's literally takes its name after a photo album, right? It's like, it's totally just a way to sell you, like to charge you more.
Yeah. It was a technology that became, that defined the art form. Like the idea of like, oh, we can fit more on, if it's at 33, you can fit more than you could at 78 or 45.
Right.
And then suddenly you turn around and people are using that 40-minute structure as this is the boundaries or the parameters for this art form.
And to good effect too, right? I mean, like the rock opera or the concept like Arthur and etc. But like making a cohesive, coherent narrative, that was a cool effect. But yeah, then you saw in like the 90s when you could get 70 minutes on a CD and everyone was making these just like bloated 70-minute albums.
Exactly. Suddenly everything, people will fill up whatever space they are allotted. And I think 70 minutes is maybe too much.
And now it's the streaming game. So like Drake will release a record with like, he'll just game the stats by releasing like 30 songs because it gets his numbers up and it gets him charting. Like if the record, so it's like, oh, you got to put 30 songs on a record. It's like nobody can sit through that.
No,
like that's not an experience
that's a very difficult thing to sit through.
But
30 songs from anybody.
Yeah. Lord knows I'd love to put all my songs on one record. But
look, we're going to talk about all your songs now on this show. We're going to go
good segue
all the way to the beginning because 2006 is the first Islands record.
Yeah.
And that record it came out on, do you know the date?
April something.
April 4th. Return to the Sea.
Right.
2006.
What is that? How many years ago? Is that 16 years ago? Ugh.
It's almost 16, yeah.
Ugh.
Well,
hurts my heart.
You did this record.
Could have a driver's license, that record.
Yeah, that record is about to have a quinceañera.
Exactly.
So, because this record, the first Islands record is you're in the Unicorns.
True.
Unicorns are indie darling band, fair to say.
Was that ever on your radar back in the day? Because you were at WFMU.
Yeah, I knew of it. I was at that point, I would have been more, I don't know.
You're more of a Neutral Milk guy.
It was more Elephant Six stuff. I think
we always got lumped in with that Elephant Six thing. And it's like, I don't know any of these bands. Clearly we reference the same like source material.
Yeah.
Even the Beatles, I never really listened to the Beatles, but Alden, the other guy, was a big fan of the Beatles. But yeah, anyway.
So Unicorns, the Unicorns.
Yep.
The Unicorns.
That was the era of the bands.
That was, yes. You had a foot in both eras.
God, yeah, multi-era.
So the Unicorns kind of blow up before it seems like it's gonna. Is that right? Is that because
blow up as far as self-destruct?
Yeah.
Yes, I think it blew up before. It blew up in the way it got some amount of popularity before we were ready, because we were on this Noise label that, you know, when they took us out to dinner to court us, they split the check. Like, it was not. No one was expecting anything from it. So, except us, I think we recognized that it had that it was fun and alive. But yeah, then a year of touring straight, that'll break up any band. So
that's what did it. Just the familiarity, everybody on top of each other.
Let's say that was the catalyst. I would say is being in a van for almost 12 months straight. Like, I didn't live anywhere. None of us had places to live, so we were just on the road.
Yeah, no, that would do it. So, but then you did not have it was not a whole lot of downtime. You kind of jumped into islands pretty fast after
immediately. Immediately. Alden called me after our last tour of Australia. We both lived in the same small town in Canada. He phoned me up and he's like, I can't do this anymore. And I was pretty distraught, and I called my friend who was in Los Angeles, my friend Adam Golner, a writer, and he was like, why don't you come down to LA? Because the only alternative was to go back to Montreal for where I had lived for what was at that point, I guess, was 5 years. And so he was like, why don't you just come to LA for a couple weeks? And there's like a fun New Year's party. There was a New Year's party at Orson Welles' house, the house that Orson Welles died in or something. So I was like, okay, that sounds fun. And then went down to LA and loved it so much. Was just like, it's so great to be here. And knew Steve from Red Cross a little bit. And he started doing some demos that I had some songs that would have eventually been Unicorn songs, but I was like, well, I still want to do something with these songs. And so I convinced Jamie, the drummer from the Unicorns, to come to LA. I was like, we want to keep going. So let's just keep the momentum. So we immediately went into the studio with Steve, and he brought in his friend Josh Klinghoffer, who ended up in the Red Hot Chili Peppers.
That's right.
Hall of Famer. And we made a couple demos that would eventually become the first. Those songs didn't end up on the First Islands album. One of them was Abominable Snow, which ended up on Arm's Way, the second record. But that's what helped us get the record deal with Rough Trade, and then we did a deal in North America with a Montreal label. Okay.
So a lot of, because there's things that are carryovers. It kind of feels like it's half a Unicorns record.
Definitely. The First Islands record.
Yeah.
But in my mind, I thought, I'm distancing myself. I'm doing a 180. No longer, like, I was so bummed that people heard the Unicorn stuff and interpreted it as like twee and whimsical and cute, when to me it was like, sure, the artwork that was associated was my like cartoony drawings and stuff, but the way it was intended as something much darker. And it was kind of a Fleetwood Mac kind of situation where almost all the songs were about how much we hated each other and we wanted to break up. So it was like a kind of negative record. Like it was playful, but it wasn't, I never saw it as whimsical or twee, and I hated that people interpreted it that way. I feel like people missed the point. And so when I was doing Return to the Sea, I was like, okay, this is going to be like a bigger picture thing.
So there was some stuff you wanted to undo going forward.
Yes.
With it. And that
definitely.
That is I mean, lyrically, it's in the same place. It's death obsessed, and the first song references the last song on the Unicorns record. The last song was Ready to Die, which was a Notorious B.I.G. song, album, and then the end song. And then the first song was Swan's Life After Death, which was like the posthumous Biggie release. So yeah, there was like a connective tissue there, and lyrically references to the Unicorns.
I woke up thirsty on an island in the sea. I woke up hungry with hungry cougars surrounding me. I hit the soft spot on my head. It made me tired, so I sung from my bed. I'm ready to die. I'm ready to die. I'm ready to die.
I remember playing in Baltimore, and someone was kept yelling the Unicorns, and this was maybe before even the first Islands record was out. And I was such an asshole then, but I singled this guy out and got the bouncer to forcibly eject him. I was like, get him the fuck out of here. I was tyrannical. If you mentioned the Unicorns, it was like a hair trigger. I didn't want any association. So I really was trying to create a new pathway, I guess.
And that's just because there was so much pain attached to it.
I don't know. It just wasn't there anymore. And I didn't want to be hanging on something that I didn't want everyone to be hanging on something that I couldn't even hang on anymore.
Yeah, that's fair, because it ended, and you're the one that has to keep going forward.
Yeah. And I didn't want to be in this echo machine where I was just going to constantly be, sort of plagued by this long shadow that it just wasn't my life anymore. I was a little aggressive with how quickly I wanted everyone else to move on, in interviews and stuff. I was really sensitive about reference to it, which in hindsight I would be a little more slack about. But at the time I was just like, this is a new thing. It was kind of like Billy Bob Thornton, with the box cutters with the interview, don't mention my acting career. It's like, that's why you're here.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. But it's both sides nobody's wrong in it in a way.
No,
but
I have to stick up for myself.
Without a doubt. No, you have, one of the things I admire about you, not the thing I admire. It's just you're not particularly nostalgic about any of this stuff. You're always looking to go to the next thing.
Yeah.
You're not,
to a fault.
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there's points where you could squeeze more out of something if you just were more comfortable playing that angle, and you're not. It just doesn't seem to be in your DNA. It's like when you finally, when the anniversary came around for Return to the Sea, the 10th anniversary, you did live shows with it, but you didn't put a live album out of it. And you didn't just tour everywhere. You did LA shows and New York shows.
Show in New York.
LA show, New York show. And that was the entirety of the nostalgia.
Yeah.
And
even that felt like, because that was the same year I'd released the last two records from that first 10-year period. And so I wasn't looking, I was like, I'm still in the cycle of promoting these records. I don't want to necessarily look back, but to be honest, we were getting the rights back from this label in Montreal that was not a positive experience at all, like deeply, deeply negative. And so we were getting the rights back, and I was able to put out the record
Sure.
under my own imprint. And so that was kind of just part and parcel of like, okay, we're going to like reissue. So we'll just do 2 shows to kind of sort of
commemorate it.
Put a bow on it.
Yeah. Now, when you were, first of all, I want to know what it's like to go back and relive these songs 10 years later, because the band evolved to a point where you were not like that version of Islands fell out of the set list, and for the most part, right? I mean, I mean, you're not. It's sometimes bands get an album becomes like an albatross where they have to acknowledge it, and it's just like, well, we're gonna have to play 5 songs from that every night, no matter what.
Right.
And it does not seem like you have been beholden to keeping that portion of the catalog.
No. Much to the chagrin of people who wanted those songs to be performed. But yeah,
but knowing that mentality, you having that mentality, what was it like to go, well, we're going to just play all of it now?
It was honestly fun. It was like, it was kind of like, it was kind of relaxing. It was like, oh, it's okay to just stop and just sort of reflect a little bit. And like, there was a sweetness to it that was, I don't know. It's just like acknowledging, I guess, where you've been, you know, and none of the band. So when we made Return to the Sea, it was Jamie and I, after we left LA, we went back to Montreal. I was writing songs and we didn't have a name yet. And we went back to Montreal in the spring, and we just asked all our friends. We booked some studio time at our first time in a proper studio, because the Unicorns record was made in a rehearsal space for like $200. You know, we rented one preamp and that was the only expense. Otherwise it was just this rehearsal space where we made the record. So we had like a proper studio, even though it was under construction. It was like fiberglass everywhere. It was the studio called Break Glass, which is now, I think, a nice studio. The guy, Jace from Besnard Lakes, it's his studio. And we just asked our friends to come and play on the record. It was just like, let's have fun with this. Like, we spent a year not having fun on tour, and it was like, let's just invite all our friends to come play on the record. And we were really like playful with it. We were, experimenting with things, like having on Swans, the first song at the outro, like I wanted everyone to play guitar. And I did this thing I'd read in a Neil Young biography, and that Neil Young biography, Shaky, that he would, when he was with Crazy Horse, he would pretend that they were rehearsing, but he'd be recording it. And so it got that real like live, spontaneous sort of feel. And so I pretended like we were just running the song, but I was recording it just to get that. There's like a lot of adrenaline when you're like still finding it.
Sure.
So little things like that. We recorded on the roof for one song of the studio. We like matched the building, like the flam between the delay on the building, like to get the kind of echo. I think I think Joy Division, we'd seen that in 24 Hour Party People or whatever, that they did that. Just like fun stuff like that. And just having people come and play. So we didn't have a real band. And then when it came time to do shows, we needed to put together a band. So,
okay.
So then we put together this big band.
And how many people were in the initial Islands?
The very first show. So Beck was like, I don't know why. It's a long story, but Beck wanted us to open for him in Montreal, wanted the Unicorns to open for him in Montreal. for Pop Montreal, this festival. And we were like, well, the Unicorns broke up, but we have this new thing. And he was amenable. He was like, cool, okay. So we were like, well, we have to, this was September of 2005. The record wasn't coming out until April. So we'd recorded it, but we didn't have a band. We didn't have any like machinery. So we had to find a band, and we just found some like guys from Craigslist, friends of friends. And they turned out to be amazing, like truly incredible musicians. And so we toured, we toured with them. They became the touring band for Return to the Sea. And then when it came time to make Arm's Way, they were that was the band,
So they carried her. So that's how the actual band took shape.
Yeah.
Was out of weird post-record. The record is more of a collective.
Yeah, the first record was just like, oh, let's get, it was the time when Arcade Fire and Wolf Parade were all hanging around. And so we had all those guys come in and play on the record. And yeah, and then we needed to put a band together. And then we had this great, we found like, it was the best. Like it was the best group of musicians who were, if Arm's Way, it's like the musicianship is really high on that. I think.
Oh yeah. No, and it's but with your mindset, Return to the Sea, you're feeling kind of like, let's get the next chapter of my musical life going. What are the things? What are the influences? What are the things that are kind of informing this record, kind of fueling you? Where were you at that point?
I think like Neil Young was was like a reference point, but like also we were just trying to do. When we lived in LA, when Jamie and I were here, we would just go to Amoeba every day and just buy records. It was when it sound old, but it was when you'd go to Amoeba and like you could honestly, there was 3 copies of Another Green World for $4, for $2, like original.
No, that part of record collecting is insane how quickly that went away. Where there were certain things you'd be just like, oh, I don't have to buy that today.
It was this weird doldrums, I guess, and
suddenly it was
record
$40.
I still can't square that. Like I'll never be able to understand that. I think because I got so spoiled. So we would just go to Amoeba every day. We would honestly spend hours just going through everything and just like got really into like this soukous, like African high life, like West African kind of stuff. And grabbing like Sparks records and Eno stuff and all the Neil Young. Like I was able to grab all that stuff for like $3.
Yeah.
Like $4, maybe $5 max. And like great condition too. Like original pressing. So that was kind of that was my, like a big part of my education where it's like, okay, like this is what I'm going to do. Like I want to keep doing this. So let's just like eat. Let's like feast on this.
Sure. And it just kind of, I guess it informs it in subtle ways because you might not think Neil Young is the first thing you think of when you hear that first record.
No, it's true. I think it's all like distilled through my, well, it's a combination of influences, I guess. It's gonna get diluted by a bunch of different things.
That means you're doing it right. that I have to ask you the influences. It's not a sound-alike record. It's not like, but that's the best part of influences. You take them, you pull things from it that nobody would ever spot in a million years. You twist them through your own process, and then it just is.
And when you're young, like we were 22, right, recording that record, and you're just voraciously like consuming stuff and like, oh, it's the perfect time to be like just consuming different kinds of music. And I think they all feed into the same thing. But that was just what we were trying to do, is like, let's touch on all these little things. And especially in the recording techniques, like Jamie was like, oh, Buddy Holly recorded there's this old Buddy Holly session where they didn't have the drums for some reason, and so we just played on a cardboard box. So for Volcanoes, the drums that are on that song are it's just a cardboard box and brushes. It was like let's just like play. It was all about play and like
just trying stuff.
Yeah.
Trouble with the dogs, yapping like the trolls on that tape, getting stepped on like a baby. Maybe slept too long, is that so wrong? So it's sunrise we blew dawn.
And like maybe you fail, and maybe it comes off as a little like, dare I say, twee, which when I listen to that record, it does sound really I don't know.
Like what sounds twee about it to you?
It's very earnest. I've become much more cynical, I think, but I don't know. It just sounds a little like ramshackle, and I think that can be charming. I think people love that record more than any other record in the catalog. So clearly there was something there that felt pure and honest. But again, I was ready to move on when that record was done.
Yeah. And I mean, I don't want to disabuse anybody who sees one thing in that record. Like if they do see some sort of charming twee thing, it's like, you just have to scratch the surface a little bit and listen to the lyrics, and it's just like, oh, this is not a twee thing. This is just like this is like morbid and like I said, death obsessed, and like there's a certain kind of ghost that runs through so much of your stuff, and it's like those are just it's not cutesy at all.
No, I think I always liked that tension between the lyrics being dark and the music being kind of bright, playful, like push and pull. But and that record was fun because it was like, let's do a calypso. There was a calypso song with steel drum, and like, let's do a country song, and let's do a another record artist or project I was getting a bunch of records from at Amoeba was Penguin Cafe Orchestra. Like, let's get a bunch of. So Suki, one of the instrumental song on that was like heavily inspired by Penguin Cafe. And it's like, why can't an album just be a total melting pot of styles instead of just being genre, specific or whatever?
Well, absolutely. And it's a record that somebody in their early 20s would make. It's exciting, and everything's all possibility. And you don't know what is yet. So it's like, why not try everything? So you tried everything. I think but it's interesting to hear you guys trying everything, but also hear you being definitely you on the record. Like it's not like you don't know who you are yet. It's like the thing that makes your music work now is there on the first record also.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I hope so. But I also hope that I've gotten a better handle on how to, articulate all that stuff.
Well, sure.
Too.
I mean, it's also,
or a better vocabulary or something.
I mean, you also, yes. Well, but I would say one thing that's interesting to see is that you've learned how to say more with less words, for example.
Yes.
Like it's a very wordy record. The first two records are very wordy.
Arm's Way, I was re-listening to that in anticipation of this. And yeah, I don't want to jump the gun, but yeah, that was, I could have cut. I felt like, I don't know, did I have something to prove? I don't know, but it's a little too wordy.
But you also just don't know yet. You're
figuring it out.
You're blowing it out.
Yeah.
Yes. And so what was the reaction to Return to the Sea?
I think it was pretty good. I think it was like a best new music deal with the fork. And I think it was their top 10 record of the year. And we did a lot of good touring in Europe on that record, like really fun, big festival shows. It felt great. but I had no frame of reference. It was like, yeah, it's always going to be this, well received.
Isn't that like the best and worst thing too? Is like that inability to know what things actually are.
Yeah.
Like you don't know the range of things yet. You don't know how low is yet. And you don't even know that there is a low. It's like, why not think? It's like if you're starting here high, it's like, this is the baseline.
And it was relatively, it was modest in so many ways. But for me, it was, looking back, it's like, oh, that really like connected with people. But again, the flip side is that I've been fortunate enough to like build something off of those fumes, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
But any artist is going to have, it's a ride.
Yeah. I hate rides though.
I know you do.
I do not like rides.
I've gone to amusement parks with you and you watch us go on rides. It's like,
so sad.
Nick will hold your jacket. You can go on the ride.
I'm Coat Check. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Coat Check is my name at Six Flags.
Here comes Coat Check. So it was kind of, it definitely feels, you can feel the, having listened to everything in order, the shadow that the Unicorns cast on this record is substantial, I guess it's fair to say. And some songs, like, was it Thunder and Lightning? Is that the song? Because that's actually the foundation of Swans.
Yes, it is. Exactly. That's true. Which I didn't even write that lick. That's Alden's part and that song never ended up on a proper release. It ended up on like a self-release CDR that we made and handed out and stuff. But
the Unicorns had that.
The Unicorns, yes. The first thing. Unicorns are people too. Yes, and so I kind of nicked that little lick, and then I actually wrote that song on mushrooms. It was like, I finished it on mushrooms, but it was like a 12-hour just sitting on my couch, like finding the song.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's we would watch this transition because the next album, Arm's Way, is kind of, that one feels more like This Is Islands.
Yeah.
And the aspects of the Unicorns that kind of bled into Return to the Sea have kind of been sifted out of the equation.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
I would agree. There's a saying I hate so much that it's like cliche that, oh, you have your whole life to make your first record and then 2 years to make your follow-up record. It just sort of, it does away with this idea that it's like a continual motion machine. Like we're continually refining and like figuring out not even what works best, but like what turns you on, like what makes you want to keep going, or like what door do you want to go down and go deeper down. And I think Swans was kind of the like gateway into Arm's Way, actually, because when we put this big band together with the violins and with Patrice, who was the bass player, who grew up in Ghana and then moved to Montreal when he was like 7 or 8 in the 80s. He was a little bit older, and he got really into Joy Division. He was like obsessed with Peter Hook. So he's obsessed with this like the melody, like high up on the fret, but he also had this like West African feel that was his bass playing is incredible. And so that's such a big part of Arm's Way too, is like how, I don't know, just how like the dexterity of the musicians and stuff, and their own influences too.
Breathing deep, I want you to
Yeah. So 2006 is the first Islands record. Then, do you know the date Arm's Way came out? Let's see if you can remember.
May 18th.
May 28th, 2000.
Okay, I got the 8 right.
Yeah, you had everything. You were 10 days off. So
Always 10 days off.
second album, Arm's Way. What was the process leading to the follow-up album?
Well, shoot. I mean, we were on tour promoting the record. So I had this big muscly band of like real musicians. And like, I'd never, for me, it was always like learning by doing, and intuition was kind of my main guide. And then suddenly it was, at my back, I had like these like music school players and like people that could play different instruments and like really had a handle on the theory side of things and like the technique too. So we did a bunch of touring for Return to the Sea, a ton. And, you know, like we said earlier, like as you go along, it's like you kind of get bored of the thing you're promoting. And I was writing the whole time. And so I started writing songs that more suited like this bigger thing with violins and with something that was like more suited to like longer form songs and stuff. So
Sure, because now the first record is done as like a little, as an amorphous gathering of people.
yeah,
The band took shape. Now you're structuring a thing with this huge muscular band.
Yeah.
Is informing the songwriting now.
and we had a year while we were promoting Return to the Sea. I started slipping in songs from what would become Arm's Way, and by the end of the touring cycle of the first record, it was almost all. Not even by the end. I mean, honestly, even before the first record came out, we had been rehearsing and playing and stuff, and touring a lot in advance of the first record. We were already playing a lot of new material, and so by the time Arm's Way came around, we had road tested these songs for a year, and so they were really like, we were really locked in.
Sure. So now you got the wind at your back.
Yeah.
And you're ready to
Sailing.
What were you thinking, like mindset? Where are you at? Are you feeling like you're ready to just take on the world?
Again, I was like, oh no, people think I'm twee and whimsical with Return to the Sea. I have to prove that I'm, you know, muscly and tough. Like I can do like more rockin' stuff. Like I just didn't come out right. Like I got misunderstood, or I just didn't execute it in the way that I wanted to. And so it was,
How so?
I don't know, especially with Swans or something, like that's supposed to be a heavy, especially the back half of that song. It's supposed to be a heavy song, and live it usually is. But we did the first half of the recording in a studio, and then the second half we did it in Jamie's bedroom in his apartment.
Okay.
So it was sort of a product of its environment or whatever. So this was like, okay, we're going into this big studio. We're going to hire Ryan Hadlock, who's this guy that made him and Guy from Fugazi made this Blonde Redhead record, which was my favorite record, Melody of a Certain Damaged Lemons. It was kind of one of my favorite records. It like sounded so good, but it like kind of hit really nice. Like it was smooth but hard at the same time. And I also just really loved the way the drums sounded on that record. So we brought him to Montreal, and we just like, we were ready. Like we hit the ground kind of running.
Sure. And the songs, you've got a double album's worth of songs.
Yeah, we had a CD era. Definitely.
Yes.
I think it's it might be 70 minutes.
No, and the
it's
songs are long.
Yeah.
They're big songs. They're long. They have parts.
Yeah.
There's changes,
Yeah.
twists and turns, a lot of words.
Yeah.
It's just a big record. And it is. Look, I've told you a bunch of times how much I love this record, because it seems like a record that maybe Well, how would you evaluate it? It feels like some people couldn't hang with it or didn't hang with it.
Yeah, I know. And it kind of hurt me because I really thought that this was such an obvious upgrade. Like this was what I was like, oh, this is what I've been trying to do. Like it felt like a perfect encapsulation. And we got a new label in the US, and we were like, which was an ordeal because we had to get bought out of our bad situation in Montreal with this small label thing that we started. It was very bad, and it kind of started us out in the red to begin with too. So we were kind of punching up from the beginning. And I was like, yeah, this is, and the new label like loved it, or was like really behind it. Just, yeah. And I guess it didn't like match. But then I don't know, some people looking back at like, I try not to read the reviews too deeply, or like, I just kind of let them wash over. But, I think some people understood the idea behind it, which I think was just to take a swing. Like, the fuck else am I going to do?
But that's what this record is to me. It is like, it's one of those records where you're just going for it.
Yeah.
You're just like,
yeah,
what are we going to half step it, or are we going to go all the way with it?
Yeah.
And you're going all the way with it.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's something so beautiful about like kitchen sink records where you're just like, screw it. We've got big ideas and we've got a lot of them, and we're going to do all of them.
Yeah.
Like we're not going to censor ourselves this time.
Yeah. And not to be too like, conveniently like, self mythologizing or whatever, but like I didn't ever really have like an idea of how to write a song. So if I was sitting on my bed, like with just an acoustic, which is how all of those songs started, if an idea popped in and I could like, if I found a way to make it work, not that I like said yes to everything, but when I found a way to make the song feel like it was taking you somewhere, I would go for it. And so that is kind of but I think musically that record is, I kind of would love to just release an instrumental version of that record, because I think instrumentally it's kind of untouchable.
No, it's heavy duty. Like, what were the influences on this one? Because everybody can hear a thing and filter it through their own set of influences and be just like, oh, I hear all the prog rock that I love filtered through it, but you might not have been listening to any of that. But I just think in spirit, there's some of even though it might not be literally what you were consuming at that point or on your radar, it's just like the spirit of it is big. We're not making small statements.
Yeah. And it's funny, like, even if I didn't have a direct influence, that's what's so nice about how all this stuff works, is that you can get somewhere in any way. Like there's always a direction to get to a certain place. And so people will interpret it in their own way and hear certain things. And like, I came through it, like, I don't know, it kind of in not proggy ways at all, but I was kind of dipping into the Who, some Who stuff, and like Laurie Anderson on that first song, Velvet Underground, Steve Reich, even like with the last song, like doing polyphasic stuff. Another just like, oh, let's just try these different, let me just like put in all my, not just influences, but like, let me just try things that turn me on. I don't know.
Yeah. Now, with that, what is the recording process like? You're coming in with all these ideas for songs and for utilizing these players, and what was the recording process like for Arms Way?
Well, we would like rehearse we did a bunch of rehearsing before recording, but we also did a bunch of touring and rehearsing before touring. And, the arrangement stuff, it was definitely like an equal flow. It was like, I've got these amazing musicians. Let's collaborate. And so it was like, let's, I wasn't writing everything, I wasn't meaning I wasn't writing every individual's like part. I had the song, I brought in the song. I was like, here's the song. Here's all the parts, and let's find it together. Like, let's do it in a room together. Like right now with all the gear.
And if at that point somebody said to you, who is in Islands, you would have said,
I would have said it was all of us. Yeah.
It's like 7 of you.
I would have said it was all 7 of us.
I mean, but that's like, it was really that, like, Islands was a 7-piece band in your mind at that point?
It was. Yeah. I mean, it's complicated because it's always been sort of fluid. Like, Islands was me and Jamie after the Unicorns broke up. We came to LA and we decided to start this thing. We went back to Montreal. We found a name. We made a record, the 2 of us bringing people in. And then Jamie was insistent that, like, let's like make it worthwhile for these guys. Let's make them feel like they're not just, touring musicians.
Sure.
The problem is that Jamie quit the band before even the first record came out. So
he left.
Or no, he was in 2 months after he quit about 2 months after the first record came out.
Okay. So he didn't play on Arms Way?
He did drum machine on Creeper. He programmed the drums. I wanted to like bring him back in some way. But we found a new drummer through Patrick, the guitar player, who's Aaron, who's amazing, and I think he was really young and just like happy and like, this is fun. And our first thing was going to Europe and playing this huge festival to thousands of people. And so I think it was just like a fun thing. And then we kind of found the unit,
Okay.
Yeah.
So with, because it feels like it's such a big record and feels like it's in the, like you made a record, and look, I love this record. The Arms Way, I say this is it's big, it's over the top. Mm-hmm. I love every part of this record. Thank you. You helped me not, yeah. Well, you're very sweet. The songs are just like I can't think of it, like that sustained. There's just such a flow to the record, and it ends in such a like the going out with I See Evil, right? I Feel Evil, creeping,
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then Vertigo. It's like those two. It's just like, it's almost like queasy.
Yeah, yeah.
It's true darkness.
Yeah,
and it's like you ended the first Islands record ends kind of on a somewhat up note.
Yeah, right.
But now you're ending on a real, this is like it's like heavy and bleak.
It's weird because it was like a successful, encouraging time where I was feeling like, I don't know, I was feeling like I could have just ran with the upbeat thing. People were more than happy for that to keep going, but I was into like picking the scab a little bit.
Sure.
And it's funny too. Like, I think that record is playful. It's not all dark. Like J'aime vous voir quitter translates to I love watching you leave. And Jamie, when he was in the Unicorns, used the nickname J'aime.
Okay.
J'aime tambour. I love the drums. And so it was kind of a diss track. It was like, fuck you. I love watching you leave. And then the end of J'aime vous voir quitter is this like fake, like bad version of like kind of high life, but almost in like a cucaracha kind of way. Like it's
Okay, wow.
It's like fuck you, return to the, like I'm dissing my own catalog.
Yeah, because you guys would venture into that feel for
Yes,
stuff.
before other bands, for the record.
That is true. The timeline says what the timeline says.
I mean, we weren't first, obviously. Sir Paul Simon was
Sure,
first.
Sir Paul. Yes, I remember when he was
First
knighted.
appropriator. Yeah.
But it's the kind of thing where, oh, that's interesting because there's real teeth to that. Mm-hmm. And it's funny because it seemingly goes down as, they're switching it up a little bit. They're throwing a little bit of that in here.
No, it was a fuck you.
That's
To myself too, weirdly, to my past. It was like, fuck this.
And it's also that's the first one that doesn't have any at least I can't notice any hip hop in it.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
And what was that it just didn't fit where the band was at?
I just had like the band was like 2 violins and bass clarinet, and like it was just kind of a weird orchestral band.
Sure.
So it just felt like, hey, let's get symphonic,
Yeah.
you know?
You also there's you mentioned the Who, and it literally has the is it an In the Rushes has an extended section of a quick one.
Yep. That was the most expensive decision I ever made. It was thousands and thousands and thousands, tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars to just basically tag on like an inside joke, basically.
I can't believe that I had seen it. Remembered who was in my arms. Remembered when I had arms.
Yeah, my publishing company wouldn't pay me, wouldn't pay out for the publishing on half, like a lot of my advance, because they were worried Townsend was going to come and sue if he ever heard it. And it was my manager's, it was my fault, I guess, but my manager was like, don't worry about it. No one needs to know. But it's like very clearly a quote, like a live sample, an interpolation of a Who song.
Oh no, this is not
In court, it would not hold up.
because there's like moments in things that I wanted to ask you about, like in I think Life in Jail. It's almost like it almost has like a bridge over troubled water feel to it in a way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, I lost my way.
Totally.
It's just like, but that's just
some of that subconscious. It's just
of course, and that's that subconscious is, we all do that. I mean, the you doing a minute of the Who is, you couldn't be like, what? That's the,
no, what? Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I was adamant that it stay. I was like, this is what makes this song fun. But yeah, there's that Velvet, like ba 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 ba. We did that thing from Loaded. The I Found a Reason. But we did that, and like, yeah, To a Bond. I had to switch the guitar line because it was God. I'm gonna get
Street Hassle.
sued if I'm.
It's kind of like Street Hassle.
Street Hassle too. Yeah, that was definitely an influence. But My Girl.
Okay.
But yeah, I had to like switch the notes. I mean, God. But that's what makes pop music fun, is like, it sounds really corny and cheesy and cliche, but like it is I can't even say it without sounding cheesy, but it's not avant-garde shit. It's like conversational. It is referencing the past. And so why not be a little intentional about it? And I mean, I'm not the first person to say that or think it, but why not like lean into it a little bit and have fun with it and be like, this is, it's like a sample almost.
Oh, absolutely. The spirit of it is, I just feel like all you're saying is we're on the continuum with this.
Yeah.
Like we are
happy to be here.
It started long before us.
Yeah.
It will continue long after us.
Yeah.
But here we are. Here's our little pinpoint on the continuum of popular music. We'll say hello to the things that came before us, and then maybe somebody will take something that we did and
pass the baton.
Do whatever they want with that.
Yeah. It's Pomo, baby.
Yeah. That's exactly it. It's just and it also is funny because it's not the first time you kind of flirted with the quick one, because there's like a unicorns thing that's kind of like right? Isn't there like jelly legs? Doesn't it have
jelly
like a
bones,
little jelly bones, jelly legs?
Well, that is the same idea.
These unicorns fans are going to laugh at me now because I said jelly legs.
They can go fuck themselves. This isn't a unicorns podcast. Get fucked. That wasn't conscious. Maybe that was Alden's thing. Alden and I would definitely like write together, and especially that song, like to a point where it was like, oh, this chord, this chord, this chord. Like we were very locked in when writing that. But that might have been his. That might have just been an accidental.
Sure,
like
but
we're all pulling from the same.
Yeah, everybody's pulling from the same. Pool.
Pud.
Everybody's pulling from the same pud.
Islamania.
So the record comes out, and the reaction is it's a little less clear. It's like it's a little all over the map. Because you've said to me that people didn't like the record, but I went and looked at reviews of it from the past, and it's just like people are all over the spectrum with it.
Yep.
Like some people are like, this is the band now, and this is what it should be, and these songs are all great and it's strong. And other people are confused by other people interpreted or misinterpreted the scope and size as like bloat or confusing or whatever if it didn't click for them, it didn't click for them. But that's how some people took it as I can't get a handle on this.
And guess which one stuck with me? Guess which
say that I'm going to say funnily enough, I'm going to say a couple of the ones for people that didn't get it are still hanging around in your brain. I'm
sensitive, and at the time too, people didn't. The kids didn't get it too. Like they were kind of like, this is really like not what I was expecting, not what I was hoping for from your next record. And now, of course, a lot of people are a little more supportive of that record. But
did you feel when did you feel like this plus size version, like super size version of Islands was not sustainable?
I mean,
because you tell me when the big lineup stopped.
Well, yeah, we toured on it. Went to Europe, did North America.
And what was the reaction to the album?
It was good, but again, you're playing catch up too. So I think a lot of people were, it's only 2 years on from the first record. So a lot of people are just kind of getting, I often forget that not everyone's like keeping pace with me, because I'm the person like whatever, setting the pace or whatever. So I sometimes forget that it takes people a second to catch up. So I think when we were touring Arm's Way, it was a shift. It was like a 180 to go from Don't Call Me Whitney Bobby to Vertigo. I think people were just like, what the fuck was that? And we would open with Vertigo. We would open with a 13-minute song, and like not to be playful or pushy, but like to be like, this is what we're doing now. And it's like, strap in, like this is what it is now.
You could feel some people not being able to hang.
Yeah, I think so. And I also, it feels like,
and that's fine. I mean, it's just like because look, I'll just say the truth is you guys were right.
Yeah.
You were on, you had a thing that was working, and sometimes the audience is a step behind you.
Yeah. Yeah. And the records sold, half. And it was that kind of thing where it's like, well, but it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go back. I guess I'll go back to Return to the Sea. I guess it wasn't like Tail Between the Legs for the third record. It was like, even if it had worked, I was kind of like, do I want to just write songs that have violins on them for the rest of my life? Like, I don't want to have to think about violins being on every song. Not that those guys weren't versatile enough to do other things, but I was kind of like, I just want to like strip everything down and do do something that's a little more studio based.
So you tour Arm's Way through 2008, 2009. And when does the third album, Vapours, when does the seeds of that record, when were they planted?
I mean, weirdly, we did a tour of Europe in February 2009 with the old band promoting Arm's Way, but I'd already made Vapours in New York. I'd moved to New York at that time. So everyone else was in Montreal. I'd moved to New York, and it wasn't a surprise. Everyone knew that I was going in a different direction. It sounds so cruel, but yeah, I was just like, I gotta keep moving. I want to just do another like 180.
I've put on something you can't switch off.
I mean, if you think about it at this point, I mean, it was the island started. It's you and Jamie. Jamie said goodbye.
Yep.
So you're the architect of this band now.
Yeah, it kind of fell on my shoulders, and I was the one bringing the songs to the table. So yeah, it didn't feel like disingenuous to take the mantle.
Sure, it's not like you have to be skulking around.
No.
And you also are completely allowed to call it Islands, and it's what you see Islands to be is what Islands would be. Yeah. Because you were the one that started it.
And I did debate calling Islands keeping the name too. I was like, why can't I keep this name? And
you mean between Arm's Way and
between the Unicorns and Return to the Sea? I was like, why do I have to start from scratch? I didn't want to end. Like, why can't the Return to the Sea be just the next Unicorns record?
Yeah.
And I'm glad I didn't actually. Yeah. Name drop central, but I was working on a song with Steve from Red Cross, the Do They Know It's Halloween, like charity single. And we were recording Thurston and More from Sonic Youth. And he was like, you should just call it the new Unicorns, like the new Ghostbusters.
Sure.
So I did think about that for a minute, but then ultimately it was just easier to start fresh. But with that, I did kind of inherit that, by starting. I'm so glad I did that. I didn't just carry around this like kind of corpse.
Exactly. As if you were always one, as if this band was always, it's this minus. It's always less than.
Yeah. But you see it all the time, right? I mean, there's so many examples of bands that keep going without like a principal member. And so I was like, should I do that? Can I do that? But
sure.
I don't think, I'm glad I'm very glad I didn't.
So you move to New York, something in your bones tells you next record's going to be different.
Yep.
Because it's complete. It's if you think about it, Vapours, the third album, which came out. It's funny, I don't have the exact date on my paper here. You know the date?
I think September something, 2009.
Okay.
Am I right?
I'll have to take your word for it. I don't have it written.
I think it's September 20 something.
Because
didn't matter because it stiffed. So
no,
just kidding.
It's such a right turn, left turn, whatever you call it. To me, it almost feels like a cool down record compared to you. If you think about in rock, like sometimes the cool down records are really great records. When you think about John Wesley Harding, like Bob, he does Blonde on Blonde.
Yeah.
He's tired. He needs something to go back to. You need to simplify.
Yeah.
You need to, maybe not everything has to be an epic on something. You can't live in that state of, you can't top, because what are you going to do? A 16-minute song next time?
Yeah, exactly.
And then a 22-minute song?
Yeah, exactly.
At some point, either you go down that road and you end up like the bloat of prog rock.
You end up talking to yourself in a corner.
That's how you end up with Tales of Topographic Oceans, where it's like, oh, it's a double album with 4 songs, and each song is a side long.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of losing the plot, I guess.
Because you can go there, or you can do like Wild Honey, like Beach Boys, where they're just like, we lost our gourd with Smile. It's like, let's just get back to something that just works.
Yeah, yeah. And it's a great record.
It can be fun.
It's a great record, yeah.
So that's how Vapours works when I look at the catalog. It's kind of like nothing is past the 4-minute and change mark on the record.
Yeah.
It's very, you can identify the instruments on it as you can count them on one hand, I guess.
Yeah. Well, electric sitar. Did you count that?
I did. That's the pinky.
Okay.
but it's just it feels very stripped down, and the songwriting is very, very focused and on point. And the songs don't have multiple changes, and it's not the kitchen sink anymore.
No.
It's like, this is what this record.
A little more focus.
Yeah. And what were there certain influences on your mind or goals on your mind with this record?
Yeah, I don't know. And it's funny you say all that, because so much of that is subconscious, I think. Like, I wasn't active. I mean,
I don't think any of it can be active, though. You'd be a psychopath if the stuff was active.
Yeah. But even the color scheme of that record is blue, and Arms Away is kind of red. Like, it is hot, and there is a cooling off even in the color scheme. But I don't know. I mean, Kate Bush was was one, especially on the first song on that record. Yeah. What else? I don't know. That record. What else is on that record? Oh, I was flirting with auto-tune too. I had demoed this song at home, and Heartbeat, and it had auto-tune on it on the demo. And then we really tried to do it without. It just sounded weird. And the label guy, Andy, was like, at Anti was like, this is a fad. You can't, I don't think this is a good idea. I don't think auto-tune I don't think it's going to age well. But he was wrong.
And I might be wrong, but I don't think you could sing along to my heartbeat. Queued up the major third, but you don't know, you just take my word. Heartbeat.
No, it makes sense. It works. It's not like the whole record is auto-tuned.
No, it
You
was
use
just
very
this one
subtly.
song that felt, I don't know. It felt like it needed that, and noticeable auto-tune, because nowadays even indie records, they're all nudging, and if it's not auto-tune, it's like a Melodyne, but there's so much, and that wasn't what was Arms Way, Vapours, otherwise there's not pitch correction. It's just it's just what it is. But we've gotten to a point where kind of everything is auto-tune.
Mm-hmm. Was there some auto-tune that you enjoyed or were that made you want to try it? Like I'm trying to think. 2009.
Yeah.
What was the state of auto-tune in 2009?
Well, I think Jay-Z had a song called "The Death of Auto-Tune" in 2000.
Had he already declared the death of auto-tune?
Yeah. Oops. You missed. What was big auto? I mean, it wasn't like pop indie stuff was really going in on it.
Well, did Kanye do the album yet?
Kanye did 808s.
Okay.
Which I think was probably an influence for sure.
Okay.
We definitely were making that record when Sully Sullenberger landed his plane. It was early days of Twitter. We were in the studio at Stratosphere at James Eha and Adam Schlesinger from Rest in Peace. It was their studio in Chelsea, and we had just gotten Twitter. Twitter was like this new thing. It was January 2009, and there was all these photos of like of the what's that river called?
The Hudson.
The Hudson. Thank you. It's like, wait, that's 2 blocks away. Mm-hmm. So we walked. We left the studio and walked and saw the
that's amazing.
Plane go by, like in the water with all the boats. It was unreal.
Yeah.
Sully is a real. So we dedicated the album to him, and
so he casts a shadow on this record.
A huge shadow, which I've been outrunning ever since. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can never.
Yes, you've been.
Can't shake it.
The ghost of Sully Sullenberger
lives on.
So you make a record that's very. Did it feel? It just started to feel like a bit much to have everything be so maxed out.
Yeah. The maximalism was taxing. Taximalism.
Sure. And did it feel like? Could you feel like an unburdening, a lightness to making things simpler?
Yeah. Well, also stripping down the band too, like having. Jamie came back and did a lot of the programming, synth and drum machine stuff, and was like really involved in that. And I brought in Evan and Jordy, who were a band that opened for Islands on the Arms Way, some Arms Way dates. And I like fell in love with the band and was like, and there's these 2 brothers, Evan and Jordy. It's like I need to like, I feel like I need to figure this out. Like there's something cool here, a collaboration here. So that was like this idea of just like, stripping things down to a 4-piece, which Islands had never been. And also just being in the studio and like kind of finding it in the studio, Now, what
do you think Islands would have been? Say the audience tripled in fandom after Arms Way.
Oh, it didn't though.
I'm saying just like picturing could you have kept it at that place? Would you feel like you
definitely? I think if there was like an insistent demand that we continue making, I probably could have just gone along with it. But I think it's sad to say, but I think I latched onto all the naysayers and was like, okay, I tried, I swung, and like I kind of didn't. And it's stupid because so much of what I do is outside of that like conversation. I'm not thinking about it. I'm making the records that I want to make, but I'm also sensitive and was like thinking about maybe on a survival level, like, okay, this didn't work. I'm not going to just keep banging my head against the wall.
Sure.
But it made it, doing Vapours was like, well, it kind of makes it impossible to do anything. Arms Way kind of became this dead record because when we started touring Vapours, it was like, can't really do, outside of Creeper, we can't really do any of these songs.
Yeah. So you're kind of drawing a line in the sand on your own catalog.
Yeah. Just sad. It was weird. Yeah.
Because you had whatever you want to say about the first record. You had feelings, issues.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then the second record is just untenable.
Yeah.
Scope wise.
Yeah.
So you're kind of starting over
Yes.
in a lot of ways. Did it feel like starting over?
Yeah.
Well, because you also, it's different in a way. You mentioned that the cover's blue. It's simple packaging. It's a shorter record. And
It's
you
just
also,
me on the cover,
it's your
too.
face on the cover. You're saying, whether you meant it to or not, you're saying Islands is not this ornate artwork and things and this question mark of who's in this band or not. You're saying my face is on the cover and this is who Islands is.
Which is what's so liberating about having the band, is that it really can be anything, you know. I honestly, I should probably be more, I should push the boundaries a little more, because it could, like, I wanted, when getting ahead of myself, but when Islands, like, when I was like wrapping it up in 2016, I had this idea of just doing like a Hawaiian instrumental record, like full, because we had to do this song for a movie soundtrack, and it was like at a tiki bar, and it was really fun, and it was all Geordie, like doing this like beautiful slide stuff. I was like, maybe we should just do because Islands already sounds like the association, which I always also tried to get away from, this like idea of tropical thing. I meant it more as like a cold, honestly, it was like thinking an Eno term of like an island, not like a calypso reference, but so I was like, oh, it'd be fun to just like do a Hawaiian record instrumental and like leave it in, like print up a bunch and just leave it at like Goodwills around the country or something. Sure. But I didn't do that.
Or did you?
Or did I?
Check your Goodwill and find out. Because it's an interesting conundrum to go from, you, on one hand, you're taking a step back, and on another hand, you're taking a step forward. You're saying, I am Islands. You're making it more, you're owning it more than ever now.
Yeah.
Your face is on the cover.
Yeah.
There's less people to share the ball.
Yeah.
It's more focused, and just by the nature of it being 4 people as opposed to it being half as many people, there's more of you. And yet you're feeling there's twice as much of you. But then you're also feeling like you pulled back a little bit from the oversized version of things. And I mean, I'm not trying to run something into the ground, but it's
no,
just
I think that's accurate.
It's an interesting place to operate from. And
well, it's there's a term that a friend of mine, Dean, Dean, he brought to my attention called amplic and chisel, and it's this idea that like I'm not going to do a good job of explaining it, but he was talking about it in reference to rap, where like you get like really verbose and complicated, and then you simplify, and it does this almost like wave form where it's like it goes up and then it goes down, and so it's like, yeah, you can get really bombastic with Arms Away and then like get simple, and then you could keep riding that binary if you wanted, but
sure.
But I didn't.
Do you feel like that one is a reaction to the next all throughout?
Definitely.
Everything you've made?
Definitely.
Because peppered throughout the entire catalog there's different bands you've had during this.
Yeah.
Like where are you at in terms of other projects? I'm trying to think timeline wise, where does Vapours fit in?
Oh, so I'd done a project called Human Highway with my friend Jim in Toronto. The same year we recorded Arms Way. I went to Toronto and spent a couple weeks on his couch, and we made that record. And then I went to Hawaii and made this sort of like Hawaiian stoner sort of hip hop record thing. Not hip hop, but hip hop production with this guy, Daddy Kev, who's like a hip hop producer and a mastering guy, mixing guy. So yeah, I was doing other little things too in that time.
And where's why am I
Mr. Heavenly?
Yeah.
That came that started as I was leaving New York. We started to develop that. Ryan lived in Philly, and so he would take the train in, and we'd sit in my bedroom and just kind of fool around and try to write songs. And then when I left New York, and then we made that record in 2010. So in the fall, before Asleep in a Forgetting.
Okay, so that follows Vapours, the first.
That follows Vapours.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you've been busy and you've had a variety of identities, and then at some point you stop calling yourself Nick Diamonds on the Islands records.
Yes.
And go to your name, Nick Thorburn.
Yes. Arm's Way was definitely the okay, this feels like a Thorburn sounding record.
Okay.
Diamonds feels, it felt too cute. It felt too cutesy. It was like, I'm not trying to be cute right now. I'm trying to be tough.
Yeah. Well, so recording Vapours, so you kind of have everything. Jamie is back for a final run with Islands. The band consists of, it's Evan and Jordy.
Yep. Evan and Jordy Gordon and Jamie. And then Jamie split a few months after Fool Me Once, as George Bush said. No, just kidding. I love Jamie. But a few months after Vapours came out, Jamie was like, you know what? Kind of maybe it's a no for me. So, and Jamie and I are still friends. I mean, we don't see each other, but we're friends, and there's no bad blood. But so it was another rebuild. And then I left New York and moved to LA, and so it was a whole. Not only was it a musical 180 shift, but it was a geographical uproot. Mm-hmm. You know.
So Vapours, what were the reactions to this new version of Islands when you start rolling that band out, the proper version of that band?
What was it like?
Yeah.
Oh God, we did. Our booking agent was like, maybe I've told you the story, but the booking agent was like, you gotta do this tour. It's Psychedelic Furs and Happy Mondays. It's gonna be great. Everyone's really excited about seeing these bands again. And we had just been touring, we had just been playing these same cities we were about to play. And we were packing out rooms, not massive, but 600 people in Philly, let's say. And then we went back to Philly with the Psychedelic Furs and Happy Mondays, and we're playing first very quickly after doors open to 6 people. And it was like, what the fuck are we doing? Really, I feel like I'm stepping backwards. I've really lost the plot here.
Sure.
And the bands were both very nice. I became very friendly with one of the newer guitar players from Psychedelic Furs, but the old timers in the bands, they didn't give a shit. They were just who fucking cares? And then the crew were truly disrespectful. Put us in a janitor's closet in one, at Roseland in New York, because they needed the extra dressing room for their production. So we were like, oh, we're actually not a baby band. Relatively, I guess we are, but we can actually play. We just played Webster Hall. That was the last place we played. It's not that crazy for us to be opening at Roseland and be treated with a little bit of respect. But we got really, they wouldn't give us, on the last night, I think it was the Happy Mondays guy, the crew. They were these British just motherfuckers. And they, the last show we played in Detroit, where there was all this Juggalo graffiti on the side of the venue, and they were as a final fuck you, he didn't give us our buyouts, our meal buyouts.
Okay.
He took them and laughed about it. And I grabbed this soy milk that was on the counter and poured it on his cowboy boots. It's fuck you. But I was kind of nervous when I did it. I don't know if I got it all in his shoe or if I just poured it in front of him. I was just kind of adrenaline, but I was like, fuck you. And they were all wiping, the whole crew. And I don't care if this is libelous. Fuck those guys. But they were all outside. All their gear was, because they were about to cross into Canada. It was our last, we were parting ways. And they had all their gear out on the sidewalk, wiping with baby wipes, wiping every piece of equipment down. Wink, wink.
Yes, because it might have some things on them that a dog might
like.
Yeah. So what does that do to your larger
It crushed me.
mindset.
It crushed me. It was like, I'm done. I truly was like, this is it. I had a nice like arc, but this is it. I mean, I was on stage 30 minutes after doors playing to 6 people with Sean Ryder's monitor. He had like a lyric monitor at his foot. Cause it's hard to remember lyrics. I always bungle the lyrics, but it's this giant screen for him to remember his lyrics. And I was just like, and they wouldn't even move it for us. It was just like, this is not the arc that I should be. I'm going backwards. Like you said, it's a few steps forward, but taking these weird steps back. And it kind of sunk my boat for, a year. I was like, this is not sustainable.
So what does that look like in terms of your day-to-day existence?
Stop writing songs. I mean, I left New York, relationship, very, very serious, meaningful relationship I was in, disintegrated. I left New York. I didn't live anywhere for 2 whole years. I just was bouncing around from place to place, city to city. I didn't live anywhere, and I was completely unmoored,
Mm-hmm. And at that point, are you figuring, you're questioning if this is sustainable? Was there any point where you were just like, we're not doing it anymore? It's over? Or it's
like, who would I have that conversation with? Right? Like, what's we? I mean,
well, the other guys in the band, for example.
Yeah. I mean, Evan and Jordy, of course, they lived in Toronto. It wasn't such a weird thing it was a new thing, but it was like, well, I'm going to LA, and I guess 2 of my bandmates live in Toronto or in Ontario. I didn't really think too much of it, but then, yeah, I sort of landed here at a very generous benefactor's house, and had like a piano, and just started writing again, like a piano record.
Okay.
And that's what the next record became.
Okay.
And I had one more record with Anti. That was the 3rd record in our deal. And so it was kind of like, well, it's probably it. Like,
so
what I got.
So it felt like the 4th album, Asleep and Forgetting.
Yeah.
You thought that could just be the end of the cycle for Islands.
I mean, I didn't want it to be, but it definitely felt like we were having to climb out of something. And I was coming off a breakup, so all the songs were like breakup-y.
Now, do you know the day this record came out?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that seems very intentional. Yes.
Valentine's Day, 2012.
Asleep and Forgetting, Valentine's Day 2012.
Yeah.
And, well, one thing about Vapours first, the final thing I want to say is, like, reading some of the reviews of Vapours, a thing that I thought was just straight up weird would be, people would be saying, like, they're back to where they were before with, like, they're just like, Arm's Way was an anomaly. They're back to what made the thing work in the first place. And I'm just like, this sounds literally nothing like anything that they've done prior. There's no trace of this on Return to the Sea.
That's music journalism brain. It's like, this is what you're supposed to say. This is like a thing.
It's just forcing something into a narrative, whether it tracks or not.
Yeah, of course. The sophomore slump. That's what Arm's Way was called, a sophomore slump, which it wasn't a slump at all. It was a pump.
It was a sophomore pump.
But we should be writing for these fucking websites.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it wasn't a return to form. It was just a different thing.
But it could not. I would have a hard time finding threads that connect Return to the Sea to Vapours
Yeah, I remember some people said it was like, oh, it's like he's like back doing unicorn stuff. It's like, what? This doesn't.
I don't hear
What is
any
this?
I don't hear any of it.
No, I don't either. And I made it. It's like, that's not accurate.
So you go to make you're unmoored. You're out of New York.
Yep.
You make Asleep and a Forgetting in Los Angeles.
Yep.
And what was you said it started as a piano based record?
Yeah, I was at this house. I was at this really nice lady. Rhiannon is her name. She was really great. She just like, she had like a really nice house, and she lived there, you know, by herself. And so her thing was like, let's let artists stay here who are, you know, as a way station or something for people who are coming through LA and kind of, you know, trying to get something going or like figuring it out. Like it can be a place where they can come and stay. And so I got to, you know, I stayed there for months, and I sort of licked my wounds with relationship stuff. And then she had a pool. It was really great living. And she had a pool. I would swim in the morning, and then I would sit at the piano and just bang out ideas, and that's what became that record, was like at the piano there, which I'm not a piano player, so I was just like kind of faking it, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
This is not a band. You are not a fan.
It's really just an all-timer of a record. It's
Thanks.
it's just like, I don't want to say best anything, but to me,
Yeah.
what you did with that record is just monumental. I feel like it's the most sustained tone-wise of any of the records, and it's just, it holds. It's kind of like you. This is going to sound whatever, but it's like everything that got you to where you had the tools to say what you needed to say. The non-personal parts of this aligned with what you needed to say personally. Like the band was stripped down.
Yeah.
You were more comfortable with being quiet than you've ever been. It feels like your vocals found the place that they've lived.
Yeah.
From that point on, it feels like that was the record where you sound so comfortable in your own voice on that record, like unlike any of the other records to date.
Oh, that's nice. I think I was tired too, you know. I think I was just like depleted. Mm-hmm. And so it was like, well, maybe I should harness that feeling.
And what was the thinking other than the post relationship sadness going into this record? Were there certain goals or sounds you wanted to achieve on it?
I don't know. I mean, Hallways, the main single from that, which is sort of, in a way, it's an outlier because it's sort of an upbeat. It's like the one upbeat song on the record, but it's now kind of the signature song from that record. From the outside looking in, it was like a jaunty, like piano kind of saloon door kind of thing.
Waiting to get to your room. Always waiting. Feels like I've been waiting for days in these hallways.
I always loved Cecilia by Simon and Garfunkel. Mm-hmm. And that percussive, you know, the clapping sort of thing with the tape machine. They like were really playing around with the tape machine and the percussion stuff. So we were trying to do a little bit of that with the percussive stuff. But as far as like specific influences, I think at this point in my, you know, it was all it was all like subliminal. I think all of the influences were just kind of already like, you know, Moderna style, just like in my veins now. Like I'm immune. I've reached immunity. I've reached rock and roll immunity.
Okay, yeah, you got your
and
second
now
shot.
it's just in me. And like now I'm just gonna who knows what it is.
And that makes perfect sense because you start off, you can kind of like, there can kind of be a little bit of a flipping people off with a thing like, here's an influence, there's an influence.
Yeah.
To me, when people who are in it for the long haul, as you are and I am, eventually you stop becoming. The influences are secondary. They're just in, like you said, they're inside you, and you're somebody who lives more for putting things out rather than taking things in. If that makes sense.
Yes, it does.
You, at a point, and I feel if you're going to be an artist, there is a point where you say, I need to be more about putting things out and less about taking everything. And you just can't do it at the same level when you're a kid that you used to, where you're like, I need to know every band. I need to see every movie. I need to watch every TV show because that will inform what I make. At a point, you have to say, no, I'm here.
Yeah.
And I put out things, and now people,
I'm in now.
You're in, and other people are the ones that take in what you make.
Yeah, you can't be a sponge your whole life. You can't be quoting things your whole life, because then you're just, what are you? But
you're a collection of references and a collection of influences.
But that's not memorable.
And I think it's great to always be looking for new things to excite you.
Yes, definitely.
It shouldn't be that you close the door on anything.
Onanistic or whatever the word is.
I know, but you also realize the rate that you can consume, that you can take things in with now, and how it impacts what you are here to do, what you're supposed to do, which is to put things out. And this record to me feels like the first one that you have both feet in the present and you're saying, I am here. Yeah. And because the songwriting has
Watch Me Roar.
You've stripped everything down, which is also, it's interesting that this is a record that's maybe your most fragile. Well, I would say not even maybe. This is the most fragile record you've made to date. You're not, there's less words than ever.
Yeah.
The lyrics are more direct than they've ever been. And you seem like you were in a more fragile place in one way and a more confident place than you've ever been in a different way.
Oh, that's good. I like that.
Isn't it? Does that feel?
That's weird though.
Isn't that strange?
Yeah. God, it's kind of tragic.
Because it is tragic, right?
God, I'm tragic. I'm a tragic artist.
We're all tragic, but it's like, why can't you just have all of it line up at once and just feel like what that would feel like? But we can't.
Some people do. I think Lenny Kravitz does that.
Okay.
I think Smash Mouth do that.
Sure. Okay. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, you're no Smash Mouth. You're no Stephen Horowell.
But I strive.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, you're right. That's such a weird, it's a nice paradox, I guess, because it keeps you level a little bit. You can't be too confident.
You can't, but you can have things that keep you planted.
Yeah.
To where you can do your thing.
Yeah.
Because could the guy who made Arm's Way have made this record?
Yeah, no way. Yeah. Different person. Right? Or what's the answer?
No, I wanted to hear your answer, but I would agree with your answer.
I think that's right.
You needed to learn how to, there's just such a quality of like breathing in and out with this record. It finds its own pace, and you're not in a rush to break from the pace you've set. Yeah. And the feel you've set with it.
Yeah.
It's a incredibly beautiful record. To me, it's like teeming with confidence in a way, because you're not just hiding behind 7 piece. Not that you were hiding when you were doing that, but there's a safety in numbers.
Yeah, and lyrically too, I was like, there was so much like verbose metaphor or whatever. I was cutting all of that out. I was getting very direct, which does require a little bit of assuredness, I think.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You have to get to that point. And it's interesting that for you to make these direct kind of like, it's kind of like it's like ice water in a way. It's just clear and it's pure and it's just not just a concoction with so many ingredients in it. Yeah. Like that's how this record feels for me. And, but you go back, you get this kind of pre-rock 50s feel runs through it also. And what got you to that, to where that got worked in?
I don't know. I had made the Mr. Heavenly record a few months before, and that was like, we were trying to do something tongue in cheek, but called Doom Wop, where it was like a doo-wop, but like kind of a little dronier or gloomier, not necessarily dronier, but like maybe muddier or something. And so maybe some of that like sort of wore off on me, but I don't know. I mean, that's like that's where rock and roll started, right? And I mean, there's some like sort of primitive chord progressions, but it's sort of at the heart of it. Like if you want to get right to the point, what better way than to start at the kind of genesis. And that song, Oh Maria, which is the most stark, stripped down record on the album, is about Buddy Holly's widow. Like I was trying to write a song from her perspective. She was alive when we made that song. When we made Asleep and Forgetting, she was still alive. And so I was just trying to imagine. I read some interview how she would still dream about, like up until the 2000s, she would still have these dreams of Buddy Holly, and it was heartbreaking, but it helped me, sort of work through what I was going through it. It was also just like a nice metaphor too. Yeah. But that's a 50s, like a literal 50s touchstone.
Oh, absolutely. But it's like the record just has these, like ghosts run through your records in one form or another.
Yeah.
And but these ghosts look a lot different than the other ghosts.
Yeah. They're sadder. No, they're a little more sobering, I think, these ghosts.
Yes. No, this is it's a profoundly sad record.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. And it is, it's just something. Well, what did it feel like to actually feel like we have less elements doing this now? Like the songs are 3 minutes, 4 minutes. The arrangements are clear and clean. Like what does that feel? What did that feel like to make this record?
And coming off of Vapours, which was, drum machines and synths and programming and a lot of fun little, like a lot of synths, to just strip it all down and say, okay, piano, bass, guitar, drums, us in the room live. Like we recorded it live in the room, the whole record. Oh Maria is everything's live, the vocals and everything. So just getting like simplifying was really good. And Evan and Jordy are just classic. They're they have a father, James Gordon, who's a folk musician in Canada, and they were in his band when they were Evan was in his band when he was 5, was drumming as a 5-year-old.
Wow.
Like, so these guys, it's just in them, this understanding of like how to find, the feeling of a song. And so I think they got it right away. And like just pure class too, with how they play and their choices. Always like really tasteful, I think. So it was just a perfect, I often think like I need to make another record that way. Cause it was such it did feel like a real successful experience,
Sure. Something to just be kind of like where you feel the room the record was made in.
Yeah. And Rob Schnapp mixed that record. We did it in Eagle Rock at a place called King Size. And then Rob was next door and he kept coming in. He mixed Arm's Way, but he would come in and chit chat with us. And then I was like, well, we should have him do it. Cause he's also such a, he does a lot of Kurt Vile stuff too, but he's just such a classy, he has such a classy touch. So I was like, well, let's get him to just put the icing on it. You know?
What were any fears you had about making this record?
I think being too exposed for sure. Yeah. Being like saccharine or sad sack. I didn't want to be this woe is me kind of guy. It wasn't like, I didn't want to mine my pain for commercial gain. Let me write that down. That rhyme. But I didn't. That's like my like Mark Knopfler song, I guess, that lyric. But it's like Sultans of Swing or something.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I didn't want it to look I didn't want it to look exploitative or whatever.
Sure. It's a tricky thing, and we're here to talk about you, not me, but I just wrote my book, and
yes, you did. And it's incredible.
oh, thank you. But that was the constant struggle with me, where I wanted to tell stories from my life that were sometimes just devastating for me. But at my lowest points in writing it, I was like, I'm just turning my worst moments into somebody else's comedy, is what I felt like.
That was a fear.
That was a fear.
Yeah.
And it was something I had to find my own balance with that, because I was trying to not make it. It was not meant to be a pity party.
Yeah.
But it was also not meant to be, I wanted it to be funny the whole time too.
Right.
And so I was just trying to strike that balance where I'm not going to minimize the things that happened to me, but I'm also not going to turn this into a pity party either. And it's a tricky spot to land. And
well, you nailed it for the record.
Oh, thank you.
And it is a balancing act too, especially when humor is in play. That's like so many feelings that you're pulling from. But as far as like what other people, how they're going to interpret it, if it's going to be, just for their comedic benefit, like that's nothing you're ever going to, you don't need me to tell you this, but it's nothing you're ever going to be able to control,
Yeah.
You did it honestly, and you did it. I think you did it really delicately, and I think that will bear out too. I truly believe that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what was the reaction to this record, and what was it like taking this record out to people?
It was fun. It was really fun. The thing about being I don't know, you have like, there's this De La Soul line I always think about from one of their Prince Paul Tommy Boy records that you actually can find on Spotify, that MF Doom is on, called Rock Cocaine Flow, I think. And it's I'm gonna look it up, but because it was something I definitely had to think about. It's a simple line, but I could tell that it was meaningful to them, because they'd been through the grind, had like a career, and then kind of got kind of quiet and then came back. And so this song is sort of about that. Oh yeah. everyone cools off from being hot. It's about if you can handle being cold or not. And it's just a nice, simple way to just say, like, I don't know, just weather if you can just weather those changes, people will come back around. And it's really important not to spend too much time thinking about that at all, because it's so outside of what it should be about, which is just the music. Like, thinking about what the reaction is going to be is just going to be a kiss of death, I think. So I felt kind of, yeah, like it had kind of gone through these waves and it had kind of gotten small. And then we did a big tour, not a big tour, but we did a nice, good tour of, North America, Canada, US, and Europe. And we wanted a real piano. It was really important. So we made it a point of playing venues that either had a piano or renting one, which is a bit, now I'd be like, well, that's so extravagant. I don't think I'd have the audacity to do that. But we also were like, I want it to be sit down shows. I want it to be like, not a rock show where people are drinking and chatting. I want people to feel, it's so arrogant too, in a way, to just like force people to experience something the way I want them to.
That is not arrogant at all.
Well, it's pushy, or it's like, it's presumptuous pushy. Or something.
It's not presumptuous. It means you're controlling an experience. Right. You're designing an experience.
Yeah, I was trying to.
There's nothing wrong with that. You're thinking one step out beyond. People are gonna walk into the club, watch us play, and like every other band, and then they're gonna walk out. It's just like you're giving a little thought to the presentation. Yeah,
the idea of playing that record live and having it be, it's very stark and it's very quiet at times, and the idea of it being in a loud bar or a club where people are just kind of, and like, I can't fault those people. They work all week and they want to just go out and see friends and, we'll catch the show and I'll have a drink. I can't besmirch that, but I was trying to craft like a feeling and a mood and experience. So I was like, okay, we got to get chairs. It's got to be, we got to do it in seated. We did a lot of churches, like church, like Unitarian type places and stuff. Mm-hmm. And, or like seated kind of venues, or putting in chairs in like rock clubs.
Okay.
And it was weird. And it was kind of a failure. Like, insofar as like, even I was like, it's a little too stiff for me. Like it's a little too sedate.
Okay.
I was starting to like
slightly overly formal.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yep.
But what did it feel like for a record that has your most direct, most personal songs in terms of being literal? Not that they're all personal.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
What's it like to have to do those every night? Do you feel like you get inside the song? Can you be a spectator of yourself doing it? Like, are you able to detach enough?
Yeah. Once muscle memory comes into play, there's this quote, I'm sure you know it. It's also a cliche, or like an repeated quote from Brian Eno about when he decided to quit Roxy Music. He said he was on stage and he was thinking about doing his laundry.
Yeah.
And decided it was time to quit. I just think Brian Eno didn't like performing live, because you're always going to think about random stuff when the song back and front, and it's muscle memory. Mm-hmm. Mundane shit is always going to pop into frame. And it's about like sort of navigating that. And like, it was weird to play this, like to put my heart out and have it feel authentic, but then also to like have been playing these songs every night for a month, and for my mind to be able to wander, because it was pure muscle memory. Like, sure. I could play the song and I could be elsewhere. And it wasn't because I didn't feel it anymore. It was just, it was in me,
Sure.
And it was kind of nice. But then there was times when it would come back around and surprise me, and I'd be in it, like really in the song and feeling the feeling, and like fighting the emotion of like just losing it on stage too. Mm-hmm. So it was surprising in that way too. But
yeah, there's no more vulnerable moment everybody's watching you.
Yeah.
You're the one with the microphone. You're the one singing about your life.
Alone at the microphone.
Alone at the it's such a strange thing because you're writing these songs and it's almost like it just seems like there's it's like, so there's a saying that's like a problem never comes along without a gift in its hand. Mm-hmm. And it's like, but it's almost like a gift never comes along without a problem in its hand. Yes. It's like they go
hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. Thank you. But it's like your vulnerable state leaves you open to the highs and the lows.
Yeah.
And it's really, it's just really such a strange thing. Like performing is so perverse.
It's so perverse
when you think about
it's depraved.
The idea that everybody is going to follow an understood set of protocols and both performer and audience. Yeah. It's like we're all playing roles here.
Yeah.
And this is the role we're playing tonight.
And if you don't play the role, I will find a bouncer and have you removed.
Yes.
And I will do that.
If you're playing the role of the guy who would like to hear jelly.
Yeah, who keeps yelling
jelly legs.
Jelly legs.
You would be like, first of all, it's not jelly legs.
Yeah.
Second of all, get out. No.
Yeah. Third of all, on your way out, there is some merch. If you wouldn't mind just
we do check credit cards.
We do have we do.
Yeah.
Square.
That's a good place to end this.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. That's a great place. That felt, what do I owe you for that? It feels like a therapy session.
It was an extended therapy session.
Islamania. Islamania. Islamania.
Thank you to Devin Bryant for his work producing and editing this series, and thank you to everyone at Royal Mountain Records for their assistance. Islands are Nick Thorburn, Evan Gordon, Jordy Gordon, and Adam Halferty.